And now that we've got it, we can include this multiple places.
Okay, but I think in honor of what Eric was saying,
Make the text bigger.
oh wait, yes. Did that? That's not big enough.
It's not big enough now. Yeah. Now you really know.
Now you know.
How many frames are rendering?
You didn't know before, but now you know.
I like that the dot just lines up with the tank so well. He says he'd like a more celebrative color, please.
These are the accidents of the creative process that just really highlight the role of serendipity. Right?
So the game is actually going to take a little pivot here, but you're going to drive a set of numbers around the battlefield. Hey, look, it's us.
It's us. Sweet new website, jeffandom.com. I noticed that if I type http://jeffandom.com, it gets redirected to HTTPS.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you, or is that just...
That's just Netlify. They don't let you serve HTTP once they provision the cert.
That's great, because then we don't get that weird bug if the schema is mismatched, the Twitch embed breaks.
Right. Yeah. No, they're just a bunch of adults over there running like a real web service. It's pretty great.
I'm a fan so far.
Yeah. To me, they are the Heroku of modern app deployment.
Except you can't actually run any server-side code.
That's why it's modern. No servers.
Where does everybody run their server-side code these days? Do they just assume that it's happening magically?
I think it's just AWS. Netlify also offers AWS functions directly, so you can.
Oh, so they will like proxy to Lambda.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I had a few things running in Lambda, like cron job stuff.
It's pretty cool.
I wrote this fancy thing I basically wrote a couple of apps. One to cheat at fantasy basketball.
To cheat?
Well, kind of. I mean, like, we were doing this, like, fantasy basketball is where you, like, total up the statistics of individual players and individual games, and then just compare them to another person's bag of players.
Yeah, same as fantasy football, right?
Yeah, I think it's very, very similar. But you have to choose your rosters, right? And I was playing in a daily league, which means that it kind of totals up. Like, you actually have to put people in play for a specific day, or else you won't collect their stats if they're not active, right? And so I basically made it so that my app would go in and just, like, bench anybody that wasn't healthy, and then like put everyone in that could play for that day and had a game. It turns out that the rules of the league accounted for that, and you could only like burn a maximum number of active slots across the entire season. So like after I learned about that rule, I totally lost interest. Not only in fantasy basketball, but also basketball in general. So it was like a very precipitous slide.
That's hilarious.
I feel like I should be watching the NBA now. It seems exciting.
Is it the finals, the championship? What's going on with them? Playoffs?
Getting close. I think it's like second round. Like obviously, they actually they had a strike for about 48 hours, which was quite exciting and almost revolutionary. But I think there was some concern that, well, I don't know. It's easy to be cynical about that kind of thing, right? It's funny. They always tell athletes to stick to sports, and I should probably stay out of sports because I don't really know what I'm talking about. We're going to talk about sports for a minute here. I think it was that ostensibly they were worried about some of the players that didn't have guaranteed contracts, that they would lose their salaries entirely. And the NBAPA, which is the Players Association, is not quite a union in the sense that they don't have a kind of emergency fund for doing strikes or whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The NFL. I thought the NFLPA was explicitly a union on the football side, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like they should have an emergency fund because, like, actual NBA strikes happen, and strikes happen in professional sports, right?
Yeah, one of the few groups of workers that's empowered enough to strike and not lose their jobs because they're irreplaceable.
Yes.
You, except for that one season where they scabbed football players. I think they made a movie about that.
Interesting. How long ago was that?
I don't know, but the movie was The Replacements, and I think it was like there was a strike and they made a bunch of scab teams.
Oh, and did Did the movie celebrate the scabs? Was that the plot line?
Because they got their shot at the big leagues.
I see. Yes. Classic American cinema. Let's make a movie about a strike and then celebrate the scabs.
Yeah, and did it star Keanu Reeves?
Oh yes, I remember this now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's about Keanu Reeves breaking a player's strike. Rough. It's okay. He's cooler than that.
Yeah, he's cool. He respects women.
Keanu Reeves respects everyone, as far as I can tell. He seems like a nice human being.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we have a new website, courtesy of one Dominic DeGrati. Great graphics. And then it just has a bunch of links to the stuff that we've already got. We've also got an itch.io site, although I don't think the link currently works.
I don't think there's anything on there either.
Yeah, it's cool. More to come on the website in the future. To jeffandom.com. Probably the new place you can go to actually just watch the stream. In other news, we also renamed our project.
Oh yeah, welcome to Manchester.
There it is. Manchester is a code name. I don't think either of us have been there.
No,
I've been to England before.
Yeah, same.
I've never
but
been to Manchester.
Unless it's in London, I haven't been.
But yes, Manchester in the Midlands. Really cool music scene in the 80s, and is also the code name of the game. I think we just got tired of saying YOLO RTS all the time.
It's really hard to say to your friends or any other human and be like, oh yeah, it's like YOLO, but a roll-down strategy game. No thanks.
Okay. So that's the news for right now. New website, new oops. I got an echo real quick. I think what happened is
did you
scrolled to a different window.
Is the audio back on your Twitch? It might be back.
The audio is back on over here. Oh yes, it is.
That's rude. You gotta close that tab.
I just closed it.
I saw your tab switch like seconds later. That's very fast.
Oh, you know what it is I've got another browser window open and it's now just playing in the background. I'm gonna go over there and I wonder if I can shut this down. I can't shut it down another window in Mac OS. So we're gonna quickly switch over there and do it.
Do it.
All right, I did it. I hope there's nothing embarrassing on my other window.
Just all your passwords, everyone.
Yeah. It's okay. My passwords aren't that embarrassing. They're tasteful passwords. They're all like 32 random characters.
Do you not use words that you can type easily?
I have started to do that. There are specific passwords that I know that I have to type in to say like my PS4 or my Nintendo Switch, and in those cases they are hyphenated 4-word passwords.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'm very much of the 32 random character aesthetic. I just like the feel of those.
That's fair. I just had to type my random 32 character password Slack password into Windows so I could send you a Zoom link. It was not the worst thing in the world.
It's doable.
Yeah, it takes a second.
One password has the like show the big password feature.
It's really helpful.
Yeah, and you get better at typing. It's like an educational experience.
Mm-hmm. So the game is slow.
The game is very slow.
Yeah.
It got slow because we did this, right? We basically added a second client simulation, which is likely to be, I think, our mid-level goal for this stream, or even including the next one.
Now, I think when you take this second simulation out, it's still slow.
It's still hella slow. Was it slow in the small map as well?
No, but I believe our memory complexity has increased linearly with the number of objects, and there were only like 10 on the last screen, and now there's a couple hundred.
Yeah, we've got one entity for every wall and tree and turret and player here, right? And there's a lot on this map. It's big. In fact, if I go to the map editor and I open it, we can actually get a sense of how big it is. Bigmap.json. It's a good name.
It's the big map. It's not wrong, yeah.
It's better than cute names like Manchester that tell you nothing about what the thing it's naming, right? Whoa, the grid just turned off. That's a bug.
Only on the bottom row. Yeah. We have that in GitHub.
Oh, we know that.
Yeah.
It might even be a GitHub issue right now.
I think it is, yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, there's, we went from Tiny Map, which had like 10 entities, to every tree, wall, and turret is an entity in this one. So like a couple hundred?
Yeah. So we probably had this problem the entire time. I think that's what you're insinuating. As soon as we went to the sort of server client model, we had this problem.
Yeah. So I do think one potential path forward is to switch our server updates to deltas.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the only thing I had. Just because like we're doing a ton of memory every time.
Yeah. Why don't we actually take a look at what's going on here? So the game is actually running now. As people can see, it's sort of inching along, and we can actually measure how slow it is because in Firefox here we have this nice little profile. And I'm just going to let it bake for a little while.
Ooh, 15 frames per second.
Good. Yeah. So averaging 16 FPS. It was actually faster when I wasn't on Zoom, which is interesting. And not a great vote for Zoom. This is probably minuscule text on the stream, but we're gonna keep going.
It's legible on 1080p.
Okay, I'm glad. Go 1080p. I'm pleased.
Yeah.
So if I look at the call tree, this is the most familiar interface out of all these ones. Like a flame graph is cool, but like I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. I guess they have a expanded frame here, but the call tree is to me the more familiar interface for a profiler, which is basically to like sample where the CPU, or I guess it's probably sampling where the VM is at any given point. And we're actually spending almost a full second in however many seconds I recorded. How long is this sample? 4.7 seconds, right? We're spending almost 20% of that time on doing garbage collection, which is insane.
And I assume that base clone is us making all those objects that we then garbage collect too, so that's another full 10%.
Yeah, I think base clone actually comes from good old _JS, right? It is the thing of is the piece of deep clone. So yeah, a lot of things kind of going on here.
But I see a path out of this.
All right. So yes, Dom, I believe you suggested that we needed to do something about server to client communication because the way that we currently do it is not great. LOL.
It is not.
Yeah. Okay. So the server update. I gotta move the Zoom window. There's no good place for it. I love that we have a server file now. I was like, where does the server update?
Boom.
It's just like
I got you. Yeah, it's good.
I think this is what we're talking about, right? Or really,
so it's
a server message.
That is the big bummer. Yeah.
And then I love this useful comment to fix me. I think with some prescience, we had some intuition that this was a bad way of doing it.
Yeah, I think that was fix me, make sure this works, or fix me. That was like a big old type error before, and I think we did fix it. I think that comment was sadly resolved. So,
well, it's relevant again.
Everything old is new again. We did it.
It's relevant again.
So I think convert to server message too is maybe a place that we could think about doing like a diff essentially.
Right. So, a couple things. One thing we could do, and what Dom is getting at, is we have some awareness of, because we're doing this every single frame.
Right.
We are copying the entire tree of entities, or it's not a tree, it's a list. We don't have sub-entities right now. It's not a graph. But we copy every single entity, and then send that over to both clients. In this case, it's the same piece of memory sent to both clients because we have multiple clients now.
Gosh, for pure network purity, we should allocate that twice to really punish ourselves.
Yeah, I agree with you. So you're saying that we should do this.
Yeah. Oh. Get ready for 8 FPS.
Yeah, that feels pretty slow.
It's even worse. Okay.
And let's actually test our instincts here.
I bet it's at like 12.
14. So it's actually not tremendously worse than before. I wonder if we're seeing some copy on write behavior where the actual memory that it's consuming, maybe it's the same page in virtual memory that it's using rather than duplicating it. I would think though that GC is complicated, right? GC probably does have some notion that they're distinct objects. So, well, copy on write doesn't make sense because there are separate allocations here happening at separate times. So I don't really know what's going on. There's something magical that is happening here that is preventing us from this happening twice, which is cool. But at any rate, it's still fundamentally too slow. So what you were saying is that maybe we can have a snapshot of what we previously had, the previous frame, and then...
Oh, hey, Eric just hopped on the stream.
Oh, sweet. How's it going, Eric?
Yeah, he said, hey, all optimization stream. You know it. We wrote the naive solution, and it turns out it was far too naive.
Yeah.
Our naivety is going to... do you want to move the player around for a second to show our sweet 12 frames per second, 14 frame per second gameplay?
Yeah, it's almost 15. That's pretty good.
You know what?
That's like 25% of what we're going for, which...
A quarter of the way there.
Which in my book is a bronze medal, I think. Right.
Absolutely.
All right. So I think what you had proposed is that basically we have a copy of last frame's state, and then what we want to send equals this frame's state minus last frame's state.
Eric says, I can run 25% as fast as Usain Bolt. That's true.
Yeah, and you get bronze medal. Last frame's state is equal to this frame's state. What I worry about with this structure, which makes a lot of sense, is that because we are continuously throwing away and then we have to do something like next frame's base state equals the deep clone of, or rather,
what if the next frame is like the application of the diff to our, so like instead of like we hold on to this entity list, find our diff from the previous frame, apply it, and that's our, oh no wait, we'll have new entities. Crud, yeah, I see it.
So I think you see what I'm getting at here, right? Like yep. We're going to have to do this, and because we have to avoid clobbering over the snapshot of last frame state in order to produce this difference, right? But I like what you were suggesting before, in a manner of speaking, which is basically like, can we keep track of some distillation of the changes as we're doing the update on the server side, and then just send that to the clients, or even make that the same thing that updates the server side state as well, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So actually, the tank mover would emit some sort of like diff event that we coalesce here, apply to our previous frame state, and we send that same like chunk of diffs to the client. That's kind of cool.
The other thing we could do, which we talked about before, is the most radically what's the adjective I'm looking for? The most abstract possible thing that we could do. The most abstract possible version of that is synchronizing inputs, right? And we talked a little bit about that last time.
Right, because we could avoid all forms of like coalescing around a shared state by just sending exactly what inputs we're playing forward on the server for frame 10. And
because if the simulation is deterministic, like if your like current state is equal to last state plus simulation of all inputs, then we'll just send this around, right? All the clients should have last state, and then we just simulate given all the inputs, right?
I think that makes a ton of sense because we've already got the code on the client side that's doing prediction and then stepping back to the last server frame sent and reapplying inputs. So really we'll just be applying all inputs.
Yeah. So maybe what it is the server message. Where do we define this, by the way? There is some notion of server message somewhere.
I think it's in server message TS.
Nice, I love it.
Yep.
Yeah,
we got
so rather than data entity is probably going to go away. I think what we're talking about here is
multiple client messages.
Yes. So is that client message?
Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate the sort of reflection of that, where the server is really just it's collecting client messages for a frame and sending them all out.
Yeah.
Everything that arrived in time.
A little fancier than this because we might, you know how like the server currently triggers start play on all the clients?
Mm-hmm.
That's actually something that's not really modeled by client input. That is a server message that maybe similar in concept to client input, but it's not collected on the client side.
Mm-hmm.
It's like maybe the one thing that the server will do. Or there's probably multiple kind of like mode change type messages that the server exclusively can send, and it will be sort of in the same thing. But maybe at that point, it's just, I bet client message at a certain point will just become message, right?
Yep. Or it's like client message or game event, like if we want to do a heterogeneous array.
Game events being what servers sends, and client messages are stuff that, exactly. Mm-hmm. And we can do a union type in TypeScript if we wanted to do that.
Yeah, and I like that maybe in a tiny cheating way where you can, like, if a client started forging its own messages, like it couldn't forge a game over message or something and like get that through. And we could filter that other ways, but I do like the limitation on just like what that type looks like.
Yeah. So I actually think in the server code this was fine. The reason why is that when this is networked, we're probably going to send the same piece of memory out to both clients at the same time. So this actually makes sense.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense in terms of our simulation right now because the clients aren't copying this to their own separate memory, but I'm not super worried about that right now. But anyways, we call this inputs, right? And what this actually was is something that looks like this, but it's just for the current frame, right?
Yeah, and actually our client message cleanup will have to happen, much later. Sick.
Doesn't like this for some reason. Oh, it was just extra white space. Okay, so now the client, our game is crashed. Haha, purple. This is like a very Slack purple, I realize now. I'm like having flashbacks to my job.
Is Slack's kind of eggplanty.
Slack is eggplanty, yes. Well, I think we got it like a redder purple when we rebranded for the public. It was when we got the new logo. We went away from the hash sign.
I missed that hash sign. It was good.
I missed it too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means though that we have to update the sync server state system, which is again just a
Mhm.
pure client construct. Um, and instead of
This is about to get a lot easier.
server messages is just really, this is each frame's worth of input, right? M is a frame message,
Mhm.
right?
A frame message for one client.
Yes, a frame message for one client, but like basically this object contains all of the updates for that particular frame from the server, right? Because
Mm,
we sort of modeled it as if you could have received multiple.
yeah, I mean, right now our client messages are sort of structured where it's like you're getting an impulse to move in a direction, and if we had like a builder mode, I would expect the client might submit 2 client messages per frame in our current setup. So
Yep.
I'm like not, it's not the only message for every client for frame, but it is a message for this frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm guessing at some point ordering is going to matter, and maybe right now we can rely on the fact that things they're kind of like ordered in like the reader will respect the order that the writer added messages
Mhm.
in which the writer added messages, but like if we do something like UDP or something like that, then the ordering is not going to be guaranteed, and maybe we're going to have to like uh, well, I don't know, probably rebuild TCP in a janky way.
Mm.
um, so the frame message has inputs now, right? And this is an input.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just explained things completely wrong. You're right. It's a frame message. These are server messages, not. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. And then how does the client currently consume inputs?
I think, are we keeping a hash table of our own? Um,
We do this, right? We do this predictive simulation.
mhm.
So more or less, what happens in prediction here is basically going to happen.
We
So rather than a loop, um,
we run the simulation.
yeah, we basically do this. And then the messages are frame messages dot
Inputs.
inputs,
Hmm.
which I should probably just call messages. Now, how do we know that this frame message corresponds to the current frame?
What does the current frame matter for here for us?
It really doesn't, actually.
Not till later, I don't think. Yeah.
We just need to make sure that the server snapshot matches this, right? Because we have to basically start with server snapshot. Like, I think we sort these and then we filter these by.
We want to apply every server message we get, right?
The server message has to be greater than
Frame.
the server snapshot dot frame. Right. And then if messages 0.frame is not equal to C server snapshot dot frame plus 1, what do we do? It means we haven't gotten the information to update. We still need to just continue predicting, right?
Is the frame? Yeah.
So I think this is just a return, right?
And at this point, if we loop over, I mean, if you start looping over that, is there a possibility that we would have gotten frame plus 2 there? Is there ever, Eric says, is there ever a case where messages is empty? Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too. I mean, well, maybe when
they're definitely which messages, the server messages or the inputs within the server message.
I guess both could be true. The inputs in the message could be empty, in the case that no one pressed a button for that frame, and the server messages could be empty. I mean, we won't get this. We won't have a message like every 5 or so frames.
Yeah, I think that's right. And well, I think that basically, I think what we haven't defined is a protocol on what happens if if the server says that either I've decided only to send you updates every 5 frames.
Mm-hmm.
I think the server will still need to chop that up into like these inputs happened on this frame, these other inputs happen on the other frame, because it matters to the simulation, right? We're passing the frame number into a lot of our simulation logic. So even if the server, even if we're allowed to have like no messages go over for 1 frame, I think what we've defined so far allows for that, because what will basically happen is this object here will be empty.
Yep.
Right. But it'll still be an actual server message. It'll just be an empty one, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe the way that we simulate like network getting 5 at once is that clients only read server messages every 5 frames or something, or every 10. That would be how we delay, because right now we're strictly behind by 10 frames or something. But then we're in lockstep with the server 60 frames a second after that, right? We don't have any batching right now.
We're not.
Yeah.
We're not batching right now.
Yeah, which is okay. I'm just thinking of how this would expand to that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So it looks like DT. I guess we need to pass in the delta time to the update here, and we need an entity manager.
Oh, we have the entity manager off client. Just C dot entities.
Oh, you're totally right.
And is the DT it's not the constant frame time? Because we had that.
It is, but we are passing it in. We are making it variable. That could be silly.
Cool.
I don't really know yet.
Yeah, just making sure.
Yeah. Okay. So that's client.entity manager, and then DT the client needs to pass that in, right? So sync. Where are we doing the sync?
Oh, it's right there. There. Yeah, now it's got an unhappy param.
Okay, interesting. So the game is kind of messed up right now, right? It didn't spawn any entities.
Yeah. So I guess one thing that we've lost is there's no initial message of entity creation.
Yes. Right. We've made it this inductively sound, like we've done the like n to n plus 1 state. We don't have the base case, right? We've done.
And we could send that over the wire, but we could also just read the map on the client and the server for initializing.
Yes, and if there was any randomness, then the server would send over some random seed.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So what does that look like on the client side? So basically, that's just start play, right? So start play need to load all that stuff.
Yeah, I think so. What does it look like on the server side? There's the populate entity. Should we extract that into a give it an entity manager and a map and let it do its thing, and we'll just run that in both places?
Yeah, where should we put that code? Game.ts.
Yeah. Wow, there is a fire in my neighborhood, apparently.
Oh no.
Joke's on them. The fire is everywhere.
That's basically just this thing.
Yeah. Does the client get the map at all? I feel like we had that, but
Okay, so maybe we should be passing is the current level. Is that maybe what we should be passing in there?
Yeah.
So maybe this is like level, which is a number, I believe. And so this is level. And then this dot map, I guess we need to return a map. We need to return a terrain layer.
Oh right, if we're gonna do all that here. Yep, that's awesome.
This is a little gnarly, but whatever. Well, is it just terrain? Is that the name of that object? Terrain.layer. And then terrain is from here. Is this
init map equals, and then you boom.
Okay. And it's complaining because we didn't return all this stuff, right? This is this, and then arrow. I might cave and do function declaration at some point. It's not happy with this. What am I doing wrong here? Function, it still thinks it's void. Am I not allowed to do inline types like this? I feel like it should be allowed, right?
No, you're totally allowed to. I think you need to put parentheses around that if the return type is an object. Is that right?
This is like a parse error otherwise?
Nope.
Trimmed them.
Yep, it's happy with that. Comma after map. It probably trimmed that out too at some point. But...
yeah, it did. It knows that this is a type. I think it's just complaining that we're not returning it, right?
Let's return that and see what we get.
Yeah. And then entity manager is already created here. Terrain layer is this. Vec2 needs to be imported from GL matrix. Let's make sure you did everything all right here. And then
okay. It just wanted the return.
It just doesn't know where the map is from. It's kind of funny that it didn't know.
And then every this dot map, yeah. Huh?
Entities is just the library name entities, right?
Yeah, that was actually the, yeah. I don't know why my cat is just like desperately trying to open like a sliding glass door. It's not gonna work. You don't have thumbs, buddy. I promise.
So basically what we were saying is
curly braces map terrain layer. Yeah.
Can we do this?
No.
This is like next level query language crap, right?
That's backwards because it would be this dot map is map. Yeah, sorry.
So I just want const map data equals init map of this dot entity manager, this dot current level.
Yeah.
And then it would be this dot map equals map data dot map. This dot terrain layer equals map data terrain layer, and we render off of the terrain layer. That's why we need it, right?
That's why we need that. Yep.
Okay, and the server technically doesn't need it, right? Because we're not rendering, and then all this goes away except for the update the client stuff.
Correct. All right.
And then we need to replicate this on the client side. Oh, we kind of already did it ish.
Well, because the client actually needed the terrain layer, right? But not the, yeah. And what's interesting is that we don't have level switching. I think current level is just hard coded at 0 in both systems, which is fine.
Yeah. We commented out all the level switching logic, right?
I hope so. You can't win this level, so no big deal.
And then this entity manager, was that initialized anywhere?
Yeah, first
we just create in the constructor, which we should, I guess, basically do in this.
I feel good about that.
This actually allows us to blow away the old entity, so maybe the client should do the same, right?
Yep.
I'm just going to go ahead and do it here. I don't want to make it like nullable here. I don't care that we're allocating.
We're just going to reinitialize it a couple times.
I don't want it to be null. I don't want it to be nullable. Like, it's just dumb.
Yep.
It's not meaningfully nullable. It's like nullable once in this like weird interstitial state.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
still having issues. I bet there's console errors, right?
I bet you're. Oh.
And I'm wrong. I lost that bet.
Oh man, that's why we don't put money on this game. Are there any errors in the Yarn console? Are we hitting like deeper, typey errors?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh well, there's this game progression is defined but never used. This is just. I'm gonna get rid of these just so I don't have to worry about them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Can't win the level, that's for sure. And just comment out level switching. There it is.
Oh, you're just saying like let's just comment this out entirely.
I think so because yeah.
All right, I'm gonna get rid of just some of this stuff that's just distracting.
And server message has an issue? Well, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't like it's not runtime significant.
Nope. Now, why would this not render?
Well, how does we don't know how to bind. I was going to say that we don't know how to we don't know how to tag client messages with entity IDs because the entity IDs are different on the client and server, but it doesn't matter right now. Everything's deterministic. So
yeah, and I wouldn't expect our entities to not render at all.
Yeah. Because they should be getting created, right?
Yeah, do we maybe want to log somewhere in the client, like just that we're getting entities in here?
Yeah, that's fair.
And I have like a small worry that, well, like init map has a very strong side effect. Like we return data and we update a ton of stuff in the entity manager.
So are you saying we want to do this and we just want to make sure we have entities at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I need to reload because it's going to... Okay, we have a ton of entities, so they're there.
Are we on the? We're in the client. What the heck? Okay.
And then it should happen again, right? If I advance.
At least, yeah, one more time.
Yeah, this is the simulated one, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, simulated client simulation loop. And then we should have the same amount of entities, but the GUIDs are all going to be different, right?
Yep. Okay. Now I'm confused. Huh. It's nice. It's nice that it created them. But why didn't it render them? Are we ever advancing the frame? Are we in some sort of like sync server state hell?
Right. Are we even simulating right now? Is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Let's go to client and then see. It's interesting that the client has this. Oh, it's just because we didn't. Like right now, the server just calls start play directly. What the server should be doing is setting the state or something like that, right? Okay. First of all, to simplify our lives,
Yeah.
let's get rid of the second client.
Fair. The server does update the state on the client though. It doesn't call start play, right?
Good question. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we're down to one client, which is great.
Okay, frame 1 on the client.
Cool.
Frame 2 on the client. Frame 3 on the client. And frame 4, and it's going. It's doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
DT. Is there... Yeah, sorry.
No, DT is just fixed. What are our server messages looking like?
Yeah. Server message length 1 for frame 7. And what's our server snapshot? Oh, we don't have a base server snapshot. That's the problem.
Ah. Oh, and are we overwriting our own entity manager, our own entities with the server snapshot occasionally?
The server snapshot no longer contains entities. It's just that I added this line in sync server state that says we have to start by applying the server frame that is 1 plus. Like basically, the message that receives in the server has to be 1 past our server frame.
Okay, so
right? We can't skip any.
Yeah, and what does our server snapshot start on? -1?
Our server snapshot, I think, is null. I actually think this is like not a numbering or something like that.
No, I thought we init this somewhere.
We could, yeah. Let's take a look. Server snapshot starts on -1. That seems like it should be correct, right?
Does your +1 filter mean that nothing ever gets applied because we get frame 1 and we're 2 past -1? Because the next frame from -1 is frame 0 and it never shows up.
Well, let's check it out.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I actually think it's working because I think if I recall correctly, probably we should stick the debugger in the call to the debugger in here, right?
Yep. Into that, yeah.
And right now, lines 10 through 12 is just a bunch of ceremony that never actually does anything because we probably only ever have 1 server frame, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And we're culling them.
I think back in the client, it's not part of syncing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there was the line where we lose all our entities, though. 45.
Oh, yes. This is a problem. We shouldn't do this at all, right?
Yeah, so our server snapshot, I don't know if we updated this.
Oh, yeah. This is all old code. What am I doing? I should have just deleted this, right?
Well, that's good. At least that's what deleting our entities, because what we haven't done is our server. Oh, we set server messages to blank. And what is next frame entities is maybe a question.
Oh, yeah. This is,
That's also
well,
blank.
this is tricky.
I think, I mean, maybe it's something sort of like we need to keep our, we need to keep the server, we need to keep, how do you turn server input into a flat structure per frame? We do need a clone of all the entities that gets updated.
We do.
Yeah.
We do need it. We do need a snapshot, but we only need it at the
Once.
end of this loop.
Yeah.
We need it once per frame. So this is probably not great for performance. Right.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's a thought.
But this stuff, this thing is just completely wrong.
Yeah. Can we get away with?
Well, no. Input reconciliation is necessary, right? Because this is actually playing our inputs back.
Yeah, that we still need. That was great.
Okay, this is the stuff we need. Sorry, I'm just confused.
That's okay. We're in the. This has been one of the more confusing untanglings so far.
Yeah.
So wait, so we get our server messages.
Let me just do something real quick.
Okay.
I'm going to do the culling here. Why is this having? Oh, it's c.server snapshot. Sorry.
I think that should be m.frame. Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And then messages c.server messages.
Mm-hmm.
And this is assuming that the server never goes past, like, this dot frame here on this any of these server messages should never be like even equal to this, right? Because the client is always simulating ahead of the server,
right?
Or it should be, hopefully.
Should be.
Yeah.
So we really don't need to set line 37. The first line is method.
This is gone. Yeah,
yep,
you're right. That was what I was trying to get rid of.
Cool. And then the God, the entity manager thing is really annoying though.
This thing?
Yeah. We basically always have to have two copies, and one gets the simulated input applied to it.
Yeah, I think that's okay. It's just there may be other ways of doing it besides a deep clone, or there's a more efficient thing to do here. Because honestly, the deep clone shouldn't take that long. I think maybe because we're using classes in some case, it's probably more expensive than it needs to be, right? I think if we dive into the internals of this, it is friggin' nasty, right?
I mean, it's how many objects are in there too? It's like 1,000 objects, a couple hundred, depends what's there, and then bullets are going to add a bunch more.
Sure. Yeah, but you know, I think it's necessary, right? Like we're not going to get around.
The only way I can think of getting around it is having the server snapshot entities be the source of truth, and having all the systems modifying, like if you doing like a copy on write, so like when it moves the tank, it like writes the tank into like the simulated entities thing where it's like 10 of our entities removed by simulation, and then when we do the server thing, we actually just throw out all the simulated entities, apply the new server state to the source of truth, and then have our systems reapply like simulation on entities that we clone, but only like when they change. That's like the only memory saving way I can think of.
Yeah, or the other way that we do that is that we only do this thing that we're talking about here once every several client frames.
Yep. Yeah.
Where we basically, where this for each will actually handle more than one server message, right? Right. Currently, it's only going to do one, right? But
Yeah.
that still means that every once in a while you are going to have a frame that you have to do the deep copy, and so if you have to do it like once every 5 frames, why not do it every frame? Because it's not like you're going to use that extra time in the other frames for doing anything other than simulate the rest of the game, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's leave that there for now. I still want to see. This still could be the cause of like major.
Yeah, let's get it working,
problems,
and
but
then
we
and
don't
see how we
even have
do.
it working right now, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I think we'll see how the speed looks once this happens.
Yeah.
I think we both just share the suspicion that that deep clone is bad.
Yeah. Okay. Did I fully break it now? Is that what happened?
What's anything on the console?
C to server messages 0 is undefined.
Could be if you've called them all. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. C dot server messages
0 and yeah.
0.
Oh,
Okay.
Come on,
It's showing.
Firefox. Ugh.
I think it's just console logging all of these like giant stack traces, right?
Yeah, I'm a little worried about our set timeout because it sure looks like we have a loop that goes into itself forever, which is like one of those common JavaScript pitfalls.
Oh, interesting.
That's not a stack trace you like to see.
Yeah, that looks weird, right?
Yeah.
Did we maybe just flub this completely?
The fact that it's calling into itself, a set interval might be better, because I guess the client simulation completion never completes. Hey, I see entities.
Oh, yeah, it's smooth with a couple of. This is pretty smooth.
Okay, the frame rate's a
little bit. Yeah, I mean, we could profile it if we wanted to drive around, right?
I was gonna say I'm only getting like what looks like 15 over here, but okay, so we doubled our performance. Hell yeah.
We almost tripled it. Actually.
Almost tripled? Yeah.
Or we did triple it, right? We went from 14 to 42. It's still not 60, but it's better.
Mm-hmm.
And now we are actually spending most of the time. I mean, it's still 70 milliseconds on GC out of like, well, it feels like a lot, right? Like 70 milliseconds is over 1% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's just interpreted languages.
Yeah, but we had 60 frames per second before, so we're gonna get there. 60. Yeah. 70 for garbage collection might be fine.
Yeah. But at this point, it doesn't look like the clone is what's killing us.
That's great.
Like we could add the second client in there, and probably would add that back in. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say we could see, because that's definitely an interesting case. But with just one client, we were already pretty screwed here. So
yeah, if there was a way to kind of like. I think what we can also do is, since it's component based, we can statically allocate like one component, like basically just take all of your components, multiply that by the most number of entities you'd ever have, have a bunch of arrays of each one, right? And that's just like you have a fixed amount of memory for everything, and what you do is you essentially just mark things as dirty or invalid. And you don't actually have to grow the heap beyond what you initially have, something like that. If we were doing C or any other like language where you can touch the memory directly, that's what we would do.
That makes sense. Yeah,
you wouldn't be malloking all the time, right? Yeah. So here, I don't know. This looks like it's the render that's taking the most time, really, right?
Graphics are in there for second.
In fact, we're actually spending 63% of the time in idle.
Yeah. And if that's the case, why are we only at 42 frames per second?
Zoom. Well, it's idling though, right? Like I honestly don't know.
Yeah. Well, do you want to try to untangle that set timeout? Because that trace terrifies me.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Is it because the call stack is too deep?
I don't know. I worry that something is not getting freed for garbage collection.
Okay. So what you are proposing then is a set interval.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so this, I mean, this has to work the way it works, right? I mean, like, it is a recursive, it is a non-tail recursive, but it's not really recursive because it's enqueuing onto the event loop.
I think request animation frame is okay. I think set timeout is just a known bad actor.
Oh, okay. So you have like foreknowledge that maybe that's not the right thing for us to be doing here.
I have the knowledge that set timeout causes weird problems, and one of them could be this.
Yeah. Okay. I believe you.
And a set interval instead of set timeout will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. And I'm not sure if this is better, frankly, but let's find out.
Yeah. And for now, I'm going to just like uncomment this so I can do the same rewrite.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I just need to comment out the simulated client loop. It should be fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, let's run the second client.
Do it.
It's fine.
Cool. And how's
it's
our...
a little jittery to me. Like,
yeah.
Like,
how's the FPS looking?
Yeah, I wish there was a way I could get FPS without... It's funny. Oh no, I screwed up the input again. We gotta fix that.
Yeah. Let's see if I can.
So let's go ahead and start a profile.
Hmm.
What does this button do? Import. Okay.
All right. Still just solidly in the 40s.
Yeah. I wish I knew what that was.
Mm-hmm.
Recalculate style. What is it recalculate style for?
Whoa.
If there's a minor GC, is there a major GC? There must be, right?
Yeah, I bet so.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, of course, these little GCs is basically like potentially the reason why you don't use JavaScript to make games, right? Like at a certain point, like your memory gets large enough that you want to be able to manipulate it directly.
And do we have? Yeah, I guess I'm curious. Can you get does the memory graph show? It should show like that sawtooth. We should see garbage get collected, basically.
Take a snapshot. I can't profile memory.
What is record call stack? Oh no, that's not what we want. Dang.
So I can snapshot now, and I can drive around a bit, and I can snapshot again. It's a little bit more. Drive around a bit. I guess we'd expect that there's some leak here, right? That perhaps we'd accumulate a little bit over time. 6.17. Well, that's up and to the right?
Well, I also expect it to grow and then shrink because GC will just like at different points there'll be different amounts of memory. So if it stays kind of constant, that's okay. Yeah, I think it's still simulating. So if it's not growing, that's fine.
Although there's really nothing that we do when we spawn all the entities and simulate them continuously.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do any clipping.
Yep.
For behavior or for rendering, really.
Yep. Yeah. God, I'm trying to figure out because like something just feels a little wrong.
Yeah.
We
could actually do render clipping, right? Like we actually enqueue all this geometry.
It's true.
When it's outside of the viewport. But I feel like that should be the responsibility of the underlying rendering engine as well. I mean, it's clipping at some point, right?
Mhm.
It's deciding that like the pixels that it wants to draw is outside the viewable boundary and not drawing it. But it might have done a ton of work before that to even just. It probably decided that pixel negative 1000 is green, and it was like, ah, shit, I shouldn't have even rendered that, you know.
Eric suggests FPS counter in the top left on debug key. Which, can we count our FPS in simulation?
The debugger, did he say?
No, he's suggesting we print it out on our in the game, add ourselves an FPS counter.
Oh, yeah, we can do that. Debug draw is totally broken, by the way, right? We like everything about the game sucks right now.
We took out almost everything. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Eric says this is what I calculate. I bet we could actually look at the DT that we get versus our fixed frame rate and see what the actual DT is to compare.
Yeah, but what we want is like the render. Like, I guess FPS is. I guess the question is, are we looking at the render FPS or? Yeah, I guess we can get the render FPS here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can just calculate it here.
Yep.
So. It's kind of undefined. What is the last render?
Start on time.now, because then we'll always have a time object.
Yeah, fair enough. Wait, I have a better time function, don't I? Yes.
Oh, shit. Huh. Where'd that come from?
We always had it. I just got rid of it. And I'm going to do... That's just my idiosyncrasy, but...
I like it.
I like having the namespaces.
Nah, I'm coming around on that one.
And then last render equals just time.current, right? Or at least constant now equals time.current. And then what we want is to sample this somewhere, right? We'll just say... Let's just say it's 0 right now. And okay, it's just complaining that we're never using it anywhere. That's sophisticated. Where do we inject that into? Well, you know, we can do this inside client.render, can't we?
I think so, yeah.
That's probably the better place for it, right? Okay, let me do it that way. And that way I can just sort of throw all the debug state in the same... I'm just going to say time.current here. Then... Okay. And then what we can do is debug draw.
Oh, we're not really in the debug draw. That's its own function, but... Ah, there you go.
That is okay. Why don't I do...
Hmm.
Or it's the reverse of that, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And then what we can do is when we do debug draw over here, we'll add this debug draw renderables push, and then I need to remember exactly how we did this.
The text, or
it's a renderable.
As I say, I think we have a renderable in the client renderer for game over. That's just like dropping some text in there. Yep.
So something like this.
Yeah. FPS counter giant in the center of the screen in red.
Yeah. And the text is basically this dot last render at. And what we want is to turn this into FPS. So is that the reciprocal of, is it 1 over last frame duration?
Yes.
And that would be milliseconds in milliseconds, right? So this would be like frames per millisecond.
So is it 1,000?
So it'd be 1,000.
Yeah.
And then this is like the toString.
Should exist. Yeah.
And then the radix. I'm assuming it assumes it's 10. Right?
It's optional. Yeah.
Are we not collecting debug draw input right now?
That might be true. Where would that have been happening? Player input?
Let's see. Is it backtick?
I wonder, was this a thing on the game that we just deleted because we didn't move to either? It should have been in the client. Hey.
We do actually listen for it.
Huh. What the heck?
I did the thing. All right, so we are enabling debug draw.
Mm-hmm.
We're just not drawing anything.
What? And that's just our helper function. It should be right there. What the heck?
Yeah. What's funny is all the rest of our rendering is working correctly, right?
It's great. Yeah.
The rest of the crosshair renders, everything else renders.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should do the obvious thing and put this in here. Come on, game.
Okay.
Oh, we have multiple clients.
They're turning it off and on. There's 2 of them.
Well, they should have separate state though, right?
Yeah, they should. And only one has a renderer.
Yeah. Let's just say to remove confusion though. Oh, I can get rid of all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's probably going to complain about the import that I'm not using. just to eliminate any kind of ambiguity here.
Yep. Always worth it.
Yeah, it shouldn't. I mean, we are instantiating the client. Is that when it is that? Is the instantiation when we install the event listener? Probably is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it still shouldn't care, right? Like, we should be able to do this as many times as we want, right?
I'm really
This
surprised.
state here
Yeah.
is local to that client instance. Well, this is good. I mean, we found an interesting bug here, right?
It just doesn't. What's weird is that
we're hitting that.
It jumps right in there.
Is
like, are we on the screen? We should be.
Oh, well.
Oh, are we?
Are we in the wrong space? Is the question.
Yep. So maybe if you turn off the debugger and drive over to the left, we'll be able to see it somewhere.
I think the problem with that logic is that we should at least be seeing the. Oh, we don't have collision stuff anymore. There's nothing to draw, right? So we just must be in the wrong space here, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say drive to the left. It might be there.
Is there a view space? Do we not do any view space debug draw at all?
I don't think we have a.
We don't. It's all world space.
That's right. We had the mouse cursor, but then it became not debug draw. Yeah.
How to deal with that?
Well, I mean, this is pretty specific and isn't a debug draw renderable, so we could just add a second debug draw branch after the transformation to camera space.
I think it'd be minimal refactor here to do something like. Bear with me here.
Okay. I'm also down to just have the frame counter on all the time, because it seems handy.
Yeah. I see what you mean, but we're gonna get annoyed by it at some point. And I think it's quick enough to do this that. And this doesn't like it just because I'm not using it. And so I would just say, if else.
Yeah, I'm digging it.
What the hell is this? Make renderables?
That's the function it gets passed in.
Oh. Of course. Okay. And then what we can do is when we actually render, we do view space rendering, and then we do this. We should probably do this like at the end, right?
Yeah, after their text.
Right.
Yep, I like it.
And then what we were saying is we do. This is going to be slightly awkward, but basically it's like. Come on, auto format. You can do it.
Can it?
Yeah. It made it. It finally made it.
Ah, nice.
And then the text again is 1e3 divided by this dot last.
I think, doesn't debug draw take a function that returns renderables? I think it was.
You are absolutely right.
Yeah. Last time you were just depending directly the array, which was.
And is it an array of renderables as well?
Probably. Okay.
Okay, it's just weird about the formatting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the units are off by something, right?
Dude, we've got more frames per second than anyone can handle.
That looks more accurate, right?
Does that feel accurate?
Last frame duration is in seconds. I think what it is that I normalized this to seconds. Okay, so the units are correct. That makes me feel a little bit better. That is updating way too quickly. Do we need like a running average of the last n frames or something like that?
That seems reasonable, yeah.
Okay, so
or just like it only updates, once per second if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Do
what
we
if we want to do? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
As I say, would it make sense to count the number of frames we get until our duration is over a second, and then just update it? It's the same as you keeping a running average, I guess.
I think it's the running average that we kind of want, right?
Yep.
Okay. Let's grind it out. I think these exercises are kind of fun little katas. So
it's good. Yeah.
Stuff.
I still just want to know where our 20 frames per second went. So. Let's see. Oh, Eric says, is there text align top and text align left? Yeah, there totally is. We just copied we copied the text that said you won when you beat a level, and it was printed in the center of the screen.
Yeah. Plus, we really care about FPS here. This is just who we are.
Down to the milli, deca, nano FPS, whatever that is. He says make the text bigger. Okay.
Make the text bigger, he says.
He says make the text bigger.
I think that's actually the right call.
Yeah, if the text is big enough, you don't have to worry about the FPS. Solves itself.
That's actually a pretty good philosophy towards this. Like if you have a problem with something, add more. Right?
It's working out so far.
I kind of want to do like a ring buffer-ish thing. So I think it's like...
He says, really what I've learned about gaming is that satisfaction comes not from playing, but from FPS. And he is correct.
Yeah. Does that look right to you?
Yeah, it does. I like it. You gotta export the class and then it'll be happy. Man, it's wild. Just having TypeScript means that like
This probably
It
works.
probably just works.
Oh, this is missing a return type. Void. There you go. TypeScript. Are you satisfied?
It'll never be satisfied.
It'll never be satisfied. um. Okay, so what I want is like frame durations.
How can we optimize the sense of satisfaction the player gets from the FPS? We should really have some DLC that increases it for you. It says pay to win right here. Oop, frame duration spelled wrong in the constructor. Or sorry, in the definition, yeah.
Okay, and then in our actual debug draw, what we want is 1 over this dot frame durations dot average. And then where are we sampling this? This dot frame durations.
Mm-hmm.
Sample now minus this stuff. Let's render at. Does that help? What a whit. It looks a little slower. What if I make the sample size much larger? Let's keep the running average of the last 2 seconds. That looks a little saner. I'm going to go to 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's wild. It actually, I like that it's getting closer to correct.
It's kind of smoothing it out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably what needs to happen is I need to change the precision to like 2 decimal points.
I was gonna say, I mean, round it if you feel like it, but
JS format floating point. Oh, I can just do math.round, right? Well,
Yep.
Probably not really. Math.round to fixed.
Mhm.
Holy smokes. Wait, does this work?
Yeah, totally.
How does it know? But it's not like I would think that the printer would have to do it because you can't represent every decimal whatever. I guess the 2 decimal around what we're talking about, this is fine. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is it?
That 2 fixed 2 instead of 2 string, I think will probably give it to you.
And does 2 fixed give me a string? Or does it give me a number?
Great question. Looks like it outputs a string to me.
Okay. Oh, yes. You're right. You're absolutely right. I'm just being grouchy.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. These are some grouchy frames.
Fixed. Let's just say 2. Right. All right. That seems sane, right? And it's actually pretty close to 60 in terms of the render.
Mm-hmm. Now, what'd be interesting is to run the same thing on the client simulation and see how we're doing, because rendering should be independent.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
And now that we've got it, we can include this multiple places.
Okay, but I think in honor of what Eric was saying,
Make the text bigger.
oh wait, yes. Did that? That's not big enough.
It's not big enough, no. Yeah. Now you really know.
Now you know.
How many frames are rendering?
You didn't know before, but now you know.
I like that the dot just lines up with the tank so well. He says he'd like a more celebrative color, please.
These are the accidents of the creative process that just really highlight the role of serendipity. Right?
So the game is actually going to take a little pivot here, but you're going to drive a set of numbers around the battlefield.
Yeah, I actually do kind of wonder. Like, numbers are a very specific aesthetic in games. Where does Diablo do damage? I don't think Diablo does, right? But like,
Diablo 3 did, and it's not. I hate it.
yeah, Crosscode does numbers, even though it's real time combat. But a lot of like turn based stuff will do numbers, right? And it has become kind of its own aesthetic thing. And I think that's, we discovered that about this game right now. Codename Manchester, now a highly text driven game. Right? All right. So you said you were interested in client oriented client stuff as well, right?
I am.
Okay.
And I assume it'll be very similar, but
right.
Who knows?
I concur with you.
Eric's a big fan of our FPS simulator that we've built over here.
Well, what was the game that he was playing last time while he was watching our stream? It was like a Progress Quest like thing. What was it called?
Yeah. Eric,
Idle something?
It was an idle game, and yeah, there was a lot of buttons. NGU idle.
What does NGU stand for?
Not gonna Unix. So many buttons.
Not gonna.
Numbers going up. Numbers going up idle.
Okay.
Oh yeah, yes. That extremely makes sense.
Yeah.
I believe NGU stands for NGUs. No, I was trying to make a new pun. Yeah, didn't work. Numbers going up idle. Man, I really loved Cookie Clicker.
Cow Clicker?
Cookie Clicker. Cow Clicker was there too.
Update is basically what we do at the very end right here. Yes.
Yep.
This dot last updated because time. Oh, we do this like this whole dance, right? Const equals time dot now or current.
Wow. Eric says to actually max Cookie Clicker without cheats now takes potentially a full lifetime.
Like a full human lifetime?
Apparently.
But like, it's kind of cool that they tuned it to that, right? Because it's easy to make something that takes like time beyond the heat death of the universe, right?
Yeah, but to me it lasts just your whole life is
exactly your whole life.
It's a companion. When you finish Cookie Clicker, it's time to go. This
is like one of those Jason Rohrer games, right? Like Passage, or he made that one game that like is only on one USB stick.
Oh yeah.
Upon recollection and saying it out loud, it seems to me to be like incredibly pretentious now that I think about it. But
what's that? Only making the one copy of the game?
Yeah, or all of his stuff. I don't know.
I liked Passage.
Why am I needlessly dropping shade here? I can just. This is all part of the game itself, so I can just throw it in there, right?
Like, very true.
And I can add it under this because our sweet debug draw interface allows us to do multiple things. Let's just render them on top of each other because this is how cool we are.
Oh Jesus. Nothing.
Oh yes.
Oh man, that's weird.
And they're not exactly the same, which is fascinating.
That's wild.
Okay, so at the very least, we should probably can we do mono? Is this a thing?
Find out.
That doesn't look like monospace font, but
try the word monospace. I think that's the CSS rule.
Is there a notion of a system monospace font? Oh yes,
Mhm.
I love it. All right, we're gonna have to like roll back the font size just a little bit. I'm sorry, people.
Oh, bummer.
It might even have to go lower than 64, just because we got this narrow window here. We're feeling the constraints of our stream choices.
Oh,
Okay,
beautiful.
and now can we just make this a part of the same line? Is that going to be? Will it just know what to do if I just added a new line in there?
Oh, I have no idea. That'd be pretty cool.
It would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Could it be that easy?
Nope. Too bad.
Dang it, we can't have nice things.
Nope.
All right.
This is okay. We should.
It's okay. We just have to like.
Well, we should do this at 0, 0, and 0, 32 or something anyway.
Yeah, where exactly are we even setting the
0.5 of the
positions?
viewport. Yeah.
Okay. So we're scale. Oh, this is a very complicated thing that we're doing.
Yeah,
we're just saying it's at the very center, right?
It just needs to be vec2.create like 0, 0. Yeah. Or just vec2.create, right? Or from values if we want to do.
Oh, I see what you're saying. We do like a from values. I don't think we want to scale. I think we want to add. We want to add an offset, right? So
if we're rendering
vec2.add.
If we're in camera space though, won't is 0 not the top left? Because we're no longer in world space, so we can just position it on the screen. Or am I totally losing? Am I out of my viewport depth?
Yeah. Well, what this is doing is this is saying let's take the viewport dimensions, like which is the lower right hand corner, right? Multiply by 1/2, which gives us the center, and then center it around that, right? So I think what I was just going to say is that we're going to have some point here.
Right. I was just saying we should put it in the top left so we stop being annoyed by it.
Oh yeah, I think I actually agree with you. So yes.
Yeah, centering is great and all, but
so you're saying like 10, 10.
Yeah, just pop it up there.
Text align left. V align
left. Top.
V align. What is the default? Baseline? There's all these like crazy things, right? H align actually is center, and then this is left. Well, no. Horizontal alignment is left. Is that not even a thing? It's complaining to me.
What is it? Did we define text align?
Min, max, min, center, and max. We're geniuses. We abstracted it. We abstracted the dimensions. I like it. And then we just knock this down the y-axis a few pixels, and we'll see if that does it for us. And yes, I concur. This is just too extreme. All right, we're going down to 14 pixels.
Ouch.
And then this feels like a nice debug dry color.
Cyan. I love the bright.
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
Oh yeah, that's hackery. Oh, we could do the whole like slightly translucent black rectangle with green text over it. Oh, that would be so dope. This is all I care about, man. This is all I really care about.
I love it. Screw the game. We gotta get them tools in there.
I mean, I'm serious. I love doing the little like ancillary systems. It's great procrastination.
Oh, it's so fun.
Okay, this looks good. I like how the words render and update have the same number of characters.
So worked out really well for us.
Insane. What's that?
It worked out really well for us.
Yes. Okay. Well, our update FPS is like consistently less than our render FPS. We are actually not hitting our somehow. Why is the set interval not making it? You would think set interval just would. It just means there's too much stuff running, right? Like it's not getting to the event loop in time for it to trigger the next update.
It must be, right? Yeah. And for what it's worth, we're running not just 60 frames per second of simulation, but like 120, and then maybe 180 with the third client in there. So we're taxing our resources.
Yeah. So let me flip the third client back on.
Okay.
Oh, the second client back on.
Yeah. And this one never renders, so we should actually just be able to measure the performance.
It's back to normal. And now, ironically, the render and update are like in lockstep.
That's weird.
The render's now gotten faster. The render's like getting used to it. The render's like kind of like, oh yeah, I'm getting warmed up. I'm all flexible now.
Now, here's my question: can we render or can we update at 120? And what does that look like?
Yeah, we can update at 120.
Right, because we just changed our simulation period.
Go to ludicrous speed.
Oh, thank goodness that's a constant everywhere. I really just want to see like if we're hitting upper bound or if we're hitting like some strange noise.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is fine. Well, but it's not 120 FPS.
Right. Yeah, it's weird because we're not hitting our target either.
The render's not being affected though. You would think that the render would be blocked because the render does some CPU, right? The render does, I mean, all this jazz, right? And if we were CPU bound, I was like, what's going on with the tank? Why can you only see part of it? And I realized we wrote
that. It's in cover. We covered it. It worked.
Yeah, we literally wrote a whole system to handle this.
But the reason it's actually in cover is because we painter's algorithm to the trees and they're drawing wrong.
Yeah, we don't actually have sorting on the third axis, spatial axis. The third axis doesn't exist. What is that? If you ask a flatlander what the third dimension is, they're like, what are you talking about, man?
Deep cut.
Yeah. Is that a deep cut? I don't even know what I'm referencing. It's so deep.
Flatland? Wasn't that just a short story?
Was it?
Yeah.
Who wrote the short story?
That's that's the real question.
All right. Flatland. A Romance of Many Dimensions is a satirical novella by the English schoolmaster Edwin Abbott, which is a name for the ages.
1884? Also, there was a movie which I find just perplexing.
Yeah, starring Kristen Bell and Martin Sheen. Titans of the cinema.
Well, I hear the performance is a little flat.
Oh, God. Restrain yourself, sir. You must observe the decorum. I don't know what's going on with our FPS. I mean, we can clearly hit 90, but we can't hit what we're prescribing. Let's take it to the extreme.
Yeah, keep going. I'm like really curious, sort of what.
There's 240 FPS monitors out there, right? They exist.
Sure.
If you want them to, fine. Interesting. So what did we have? We had 60, but we got 53.
Huh?
We had 120, and what were we getting before?
Like 96, yeah.
And then we had 240, and we're getting let's say 165.
Mm-hmm. I have one thought actually.
You have a theory? Because that's not linear. That is arcing down, right? Like.
Oh, my one theory is that the time measurement is at the end of the function. We should actually measure when the frame starts, because that's the number of frames that get called. Like, shouldn't we be measuring we're not measuring how long the frame takes, we're measuring how many times we get into the update function per second. Or do you want it to be the number of completed frames per second? I just worry that delta is actually going to make like the average weirder. Because what I want to see is that we get into the function 240 clock times per second. And that I would say is like, we've done it.
I see what you are saying, yes. Because we just need to make it to the update, right? We're not trying to measure how long it takes us to get
correct.
To the update.
And in fact, like if we're being good evented citizens, like our updates could take even longer. Our updates could take a little longer and it'd be fine because the next one would actually be queued up.
So the render sample, I just need to look for where the dot samples are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this whole thing needs to happen.
I think it's the first thing in the function. Yeah.
Yeah. Even before the clear.
Yep. And same for the update, which is right there.
I was like scrolling away. I was like, where is it? Where did I put it? Bring it back. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay. Reload. WebSocket is not open. Oh God.
what the hell?
No. Come on, man. I bet it's just not even running.
I'm
right
sure
now.
it crashed.
I just like.
Yep.
Parcel's like parse error. Go fuck yourself.
It's I hear they fixed that. They fixed that bug in Parcel too.
Did they?
Compiler no longer tells you to go fuck yourself. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, that was. Yeah.
All right.
Not very polite. It still sucks.
Great.
I don't know, man.
All right. One hypothesis down.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I want to know. So is set interval not how we want to schedule something? Period.
We kind of have to in JavaScript, right? I
Yeah.
don't think we have a choice.
Jeff,
sleep.
I actually think our frame time got worse. It was trending down to the 40s there for a second.
Interesting.
Which is good. I'm happy.
Well, frame time gets worse whenever
it's when you tab away.
Whenever you lose focus.
Yep.
But this looks worse than before. Before it was like 160 to 170.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting up there. Maybe it's just where I was. But it does feel consistently worse, the update time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense. Because the render's not being affected. And if we were CPU bound by any of this stuff, you would think that the render would get impacted by it.
I would.
This is a complex question, right? Because like we don't really control the full flow of time here, right? What we're doing is we're saying we're enqueuing a bunch of stuff, but the queue can get blocked. Unless the event loop does scheduling, which it might, right? It might always schedule the request animation frames at the right time.
That one sure seems more consistent than the set timeout.
If I get rid of this, I don't know if this matters. Let's see. Does that seem a little better to you?
Not really.
No? Seems kind of the same.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, man. The only thing I can imagine is that this is taking longer than 16.7 milliseconds to run an update.
Well, and this is so. I mean, what is 16.7 now? It's
it's
1/240th. Yeah.
It's 1 divided by 240. So, yeah, in 4 milliseconds, right? Or yes,
That's pretty great.
4 milliseconds is pretty good frame time.
It's just I'm just confused that if we can get to 160, why can't we get to 60? What's the rub?
Is it that set interval sucks?
Possibly.
So the one thing about set interval is that it probably uses an operating system sleep or a VM sleep, and generally the way that those things work is that it's like this is the minimum amount of time that will be elapsed before your thing gets called.
Yep.
You're not guaranteed that.
Right.
But the render is more consistent. I will grant you that.
God, I hate to do something like a. You could be a real bad citizen and do a while one until you get to the timing you want, and then run the update. But that doesn't feel good, so let's not.
I don't think we can do the while one because then the render frame will never run.
That's true.
Because you're going to be occupying the VM the entire time, right? Only one. There's no parallelism whatsoever in this.
Crud. Okay.
We could rewrite this in Rust. So goes the same, right?
Is sort of on the same track as a web worker the answer?
Potentially, yes, because a web worker will give you the second core, right? And that's actually not a horrible thing to do. At least in the one, yeah, we basically run the client in a web worker or the server in a web worker, right?
Two web
And then
workers.
they're no longer shared memory, and then we'd have to write the communication protocol, which we've been procrastinating about.
That could be pretty cool.
At any rate, I will say though that this is great progress, right?
Oh,
we
huge
have
progress.
solved our FPS problems, although it feels kind of slow, to be honest. And it's because we don't need 200.
I was gonna say pop it back down to 60, and we'll be fine.
I read that article that Valorant does 128, and I was like, damn, we should be able to do 128. But we're running in JavaScript here. They're doing C++ on like gigantic machines. They're using like 36 core AWS instances.
That's pretty wild.
This feels decent, and we have this bitchin'. Is that a word?
Yeah,
I'm gonna use that word. It's bitchin'.
But
FPS.
What happens if we take it down to 30 updates a second?
Does it change?
Eric says WASM time, and he is correct.
Yeah, he's right. That's why I wanted to rewrite in Rust. Rust is like the WASM language. And Parcel does Rust, actually. Parcel, you can just put a .rs file into your JavaScript project, and it'll just like know what to do.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
All right, I'm disappointed that 30 doesn't show up either, so maybe this becomes a Rust game.
Yeah, well, I think...
Well, I think we're actually
going to solve our parallelism problem. So
I think we're actually in the realm of fine at this point.
I think we're in the realm of like we're good and we can continue, because I think probably what it is just like this is a really hand wavy number, right? So I think 60 FPS is the blessed frame rate that everybody wants to get to for simulation, at least. We're rendering at 60 ish. Everything's looking good.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah, I agree. Ish. It's fine. It's a good ish.
Ish. You know, it's a game-ish.
It's a game-ish. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think that feels good. Man, this network stuff is really... It continues to twist my brain in a pretzel. So sorry for saying dumb shit on stream.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think I'm right there with you. I mean, I'm the one that's typing right now, and I'm just like... It's just sewage being spewed out onto the screen. And we haven't even gotten to the hard parts yet. Right? We haven't spawned entities on the client that don't exist on the server.
Yep.
We haven't gotten to any form of prediction skew where the client mispredicts, and then we have to like roll back the fact that it shot a bullet or something like that, right?
Though our system does do that now, right? Because we'll take input events and just replay them. You're right.
So we do the reconciliation, or I don't know what the right terminology is. We will reconcile with server state and client input. We will not reconcile between what was previously rendered to the client and what should be rendered to the client for that frame. And I don't know if there's a separate word for that, because we could solve that problem by not even trying to do it at all, so it will just pop, and maybe it's just fine. Or we could solve the problem by doing some kind of interpolation between what we rendered last time, and like where it should be and where it currently is rendering, which is an even more complicated thing because now we have a third state to worry about, right? Because we have the server snapshot, which is the state in the past. We have the predicted state, and then we have the authoritative state based on the recorded input, and then we'd have to interpolate between these two. Good times. I love it.
We're gonna make it. It's good. Yeah. Man. Wild. Well, we should push this to
we will push it. Session 35. Good God.
Yeah, we should push it to itch too, because now it's actually playable. The current one out there is.
Oh, is itch like just a different Git remote? Is that how we do it?
Actually, I guess when you push main on this repo, I think it auto deploys.
I might have to update on itch because I changed the repo name.
Netlify will auto deploy. Itch, I think, wants a zipped artifact whenever we update. So maybe the Netlify app will be up, and it's currently unplayable anyway.
Itch wants a zip.
For HTML games, you just give them a zip, and it's just the output of your dist folder. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's fine.
They should have a Git interface. It feels like the way to go.
But then you're running a Git service,